Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast. This is your host, Ryan Coyle, joined alongside Kevin Cannon for our return to our weekly show, NFL Big Five Games of the Week. Took week 7 and 8 off. We just needed to recharge the batteries. We're here, though. We're ready to go back for the rest of the season. As we go into week 9 over the second half of the year, looking to dominate the rest of the season. But welcome back to the show, Kevin. How are we?
Good, feeling recharged, like you said, after our 2 week bye.
All right, we'll get into it. Some pretty good games as always on the slate. Before we get into it, though, do you think like the NFL has been like that good this year? I feel like in past seasons, like some of these games that we've had have been like much more awesome matchups, but like it feels like a lot of these games are kind of all lopsided right now, or just it's just like bad football at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of teams that everyone's expecting to be better than they actually are, like the Packers and Bucks, Rams, teams like that, and they just haven't lived up to expectations like everyone thought they were going to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you got teams like the Jets, even the Bears have been semi-competitive. The Giants, the Seahawks are like Falcons are in first place. I don't know. It's just been like a pretty weird season. See if we can kind of return to a bit of the norm over the second half. But first game of the week, one of the teams we mentioned included. We have the Bills at 6-1 at the New York Jets, 5-3. 1 o'clock on CBS. Bills -13 over under 47.5.
I have the Bills winning 30, Jets 14. The Bills covering that 13-point spread. The under at 47.5 hidden. The Jets got out to a real nice start this season, but I never really thought they were serious. Zach Wilson has not looked great and is not completing balls at a very high rate and just looks just a little bit lost sometimes out there. The Bills' offense is scary, and they also just added Naeem Hines from the Colts at the trade deadline this past week. I don't expect him to have a big role this week, if any, but however, I think this is something as the season goes on that many people at the end of the year will end up looking back at. It's kind of been the one thing they've been missing in the Bills' offense, and Hines is a great receiving running back, so he's got a dual threat, and I think he was held back a little bit in Indianapolis running the ball because he was behind Jonathan Taylor. So that's my big takeaway from this week with the Bills. I think they got better, and I don't think it's going to be that close with the Jets.
I agree. I like Bills win this one easy. I got them 31-10, so Bills -13, under 47.5 there as well. Saw a stat the other day on Twitter. Pro Football Focus ranks the Jets as the number 1 defense in the NFL, but the number 32 offense. So pretty crazy there. And then with Breece Hall and Elijah Vera Tucker out now for the rest of the season, I don't see much improvement coming from the Jets. Zach Wilson really has to wake up, or it could be kind of a short tenure there for him at quarterback. I like the Bills to win here, do it comfortably, as I said, because I just don't really see the Jets offense being able to compete with Buffalo. Even when Josh Allen threw 2 picks last week, wasn't able to watch that Sunday night game, but they still 2 interceptions and they still scored 27 points. And Wilson has really struggled since returning from those injuries, especially with Hall out of the lineup now. You don't have that good running game or as good of a running game to rely on. He only has 3 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions on the year. Breece Hall was looking like a star in the making. He reminded me a lot of young Le'Veon Bell, and anytime you remove a really valuable talent like that from your lineup, you're going to struggle. Tre'Davious White set to return this week as well, it looks like, for the Bills, adding another boost to that defense and making it even more difficult for the Jets to move the ball. I think the Bills are going to win this one easy. Really like the under, too. I don't really see the Jets getting more than potentially 14 points in this game. Second game of the week, we have Vikings, one of those kind of surprise teams. I had them as my division winner, but I didn't think they would be this dominant to start the year. But a lot of people still are labeling them as kind of fraudulent. But they come into this game at 6-1 at the Washington Commanders, 4-4, riding a 3-game win streak. 1 o'clock on Fox. Vikings -3.5, over under 44.5.
Of the Vikings winning a close one, 27, Commanders 24. So the Commanders covering that 3.5-point spread and the over of 44.5 hidden. I really struggled this one. I really wanted to pick the Commanders and thought about it for a while. Even though Taylor Heineke is a very flawed QB, I do think he has some of that Ryan Fitzpatrick Fitz magic in him where he's just able to come up and make plays that really don't make a ton of sense. And he's not always the great statistical quarterback, and it's not always pretty, but he does seem to get the job done more than not. That being said, the Vikings are good. They're actually very good. Their offense can beat you in a multitude of different ways. I'm not a big believer in Kirk Cousins at all, but I do trust him here in a 1 o'clock game where he has all his weapons and he has a lot of them. And they're also playing a team that they probably on paper should beat.
Yep, I'm right there with you. Same margin of victory. Just a little bit lower scoring. I got Vikings 24, Commanders 21. So Washington covering 3.5, over 44.5 hitting there. Barely. Heineke comes in for Wentz, and now the Commanders are in playoff contention. Like we kind of touched on at the beginning of the show, some really weak records so far. I mean, you got Rams are 3-4, I believe it is. Cardinals are 3-5. Bucks are 3-5. Just a lot of poor teams. And you look at the Commanders right there. If they're in any other division, they might be like leading or just in second place right now. And playing in the loaded this year NFC East, they're still in the contention for a wild card. It'd be pretty insane if all four NFC East teams found their way into the playoffs. But one game out of the wild card right now, riding a 3-game win streak. They haven't beaten a real good team, another like playoff team during that run, but still, 3 wins in a row is 3 wins, and that's tough to do in the NFL. A lot of talk out there right now that like the Vikings are fraudulent. I'm hearing a lot of the national people not really buying into them, but I think they're more legit and not really in like the Giants, Seahawks, Falcons type territory where I think those teams eventually won't make the playoffs and they'll kind of come back to the norm. Their talent or lack thereof, will come to the forefront by the end of the season. Kirk Cousins' revenge game here on the table too. Cousins in the 1 p.m. slate, like you said, Kevin, opposed to prime time, always helps. If Washington wins this one, that's 4 in a row, and I just don't see them being able to ride off 4 wins in a row. I think the Vikings are the better football team. I think they win again, going to 7-1 and building on that division lead. So give me Vikings 24-21, Washington plus 3.5 or 44.5. Third game of the week, big one in the NFC West. Seahawks 5-3 at Cardinals 3-5. 4:05 on CBS. Cardinals 2.5-point favorite here, even with the worst record. Over under 49.5. Who you got here?
I have the Seahawks winning outright 27, Cardinals 24. Seahawks covering that 2.5 point spread. The over of 49.5 hidden. I love picking against the Cardinals. I will bet on this game this week. I will take Seahawks money line, and I think it's going to go well. I just don't think the Cardinals are a very good team. They never seem able to just put it all together, even though they have a ton of talent. Geno Smith has played really well this year, as it's been well documented, because not anyone really expected this to be happening. The emergence of Kenneth Walker in the backfield, who has a TD in 4 straight games now, has really helped the offense take it to another level as well. The Seahawks are 4th in the league in scoring and have already beaten the Cardinals this year. I don't expect a lot out of either defense, but I trust Pete Carroll more than I trust Cliff Kingsbury here in this situation to have his guys ready to go.
I'm going to take the Cardinals in this one at home. I got them 30-27, so Cardinals minus 2.5, over 49.5. Did not think I didn't think I'd be mentioning this much this show, but I did not expect like the Seahawks to be sitting here after 8 weeks in sole possession of first place in the NFC West. Kind of just goes to show you how crazy the NFL is this year. Cardinals have sputtered out of the gate. On the other hand, after last year's kind of rocking start to the year, something that I was expecting. I was expecting a regression year from Arizona not to make the playoffs. But still, they have a lot of talent on this roster, and with DeAndre Hopkins back, the offense has been looking better. They lose this one though, fall to 3-6, and I think they'll need more so a miracle to reach the playoffs. The fact that Vegas has them as a favorite in this one gives me confidence that Arizona will win this game. Their backs against the wall. They're at home. You have to figure they're going to be playing with a certain level of desperation. And the Seahawks, I think, like I mentioned with a few other teams, are due for a kind of comeback to earth type of game. No real stats or just deep background on this one, just going with the desperation factor and a gut feel. And I think Kyler Murray is going to make some plays down the stretch. Their offense is much better in the second half. I think he has a nice fourth quarter in this one at home to keep their season alive with DeAndre Hopkins really finding his way back into the lineup. Fourth game of the week, probably the biggest game in terms of desperation factor, and that's the 3-4 Rams at the 3-5 Bucks. I remember doing podcast at the beginning of the year listing off my 10 favorite games I was looking forward to this year, and this was on there, and I was expecting more so 5-3 and or a 5-2 type game. But this one 3-4 at 3-5. 425 on CBS. Bucks minus 2.5, over under 42.5.
I have the Bucks winning a close one, 21, Rams 20, Rams covering the 2.5 point spread, and the under of 42.5 hidden. Like you said earlier, this game was probably circled by a lot of people for the season, and now it looks like it could be a really ugly game. It is hard to think that less than a year ago, these two teams were playing in the playoffs, and it was a great game with a lot of final second drama. Both teams have lost 3 of their last 4, and the loser will go even further down in the NFC playoff standings here. Neither offense is going to be good in this game, I don't think, but the Bucks defense is not terrible. I know they certainly haven't been playing up to their standard, which is pretty high, but they're still a decent defense where the Rams don't really have anything going on offense or defense. And I think the Bucks will be able to take advantage of a terrible Rams offensive line and an offense that just loves to throw the ball. The Rams offense has been pretty terrible, averaging 4.8 yards per play, which is good for 31st in the league this year. So that's why I'm going with the Bucks.
I'm going with the Bucks too. I think it's going to be an ugly game, but I still have the over hitting. I mean, this is a low total, especially for these two teams, but I like the over to hit. I got Bucks 23, Rams 20, so Bucks minus 2.5, and then, like I said, over 42.5. Like kind of like I mentioned in the prelude, this is two teams that are playing desperation football, I think, in this game. Two of the top 3 teams in terms of the betting favorites to win the NFC heading into the season. Bucks still at 4th, but the Rams are all the way down to 6th. Two teams that haven't had necessarily the start that they were hoping for and many expected, but still have legit chances to win their division. The divorce certainly has had an impact, I think, on Tom Brady, but with that kind of behind him now, with getting like that announcement out of the way, knowing that there's not much he can do to fix it, I think he can kind of get out of that mental fog that he might have been in and just have his focus for at least the rest of the season on his football team. The Rams got manhandled up front again by the 49ers, and that's one of the strengths of this Bucs team. Even with Shaq Barrett now out, they still have a nice defensive front. Rams might be without Cooper Kupp. He suffered that knee injury last week. I think he'll play, but still, he might not be 100%. It's getting to be desperation mode for both of these teams. And in a big game, I'm going to side with the home team and with Tom Brady over Matt Stafford. I think the Bucs front is going to present too many challenges to the Rams, just like the 49ers were able to do last week. So I think the Bucs find a way to get the win at home here and get back into first place in the NFC South by the end of Sunday. And then our 5th and final game of the week, first one, I think, with two, or besides the Jets, Bills, with teams with winning records. We got the 5-2 Titans at the 5-2 Chiefs, 8:20 on NBC Sunday Night Football. Chiefs 11-point favorites, pretty big number there for 5-2 teams. Over under 46.5.
I had the Chiefs winning by a field goal, 27, Titans 24. The Titans covering that huge 11-point spread, and the over of 46.5 hidden. I actually was going to pick the Titans in an upset here, but it is Andy Reid off the bye. I think it will be more of a close game, as the Titans usually play Mahomes pretty tough. No matter who starts for the Titans at QB, they're just going to do what they always do, and that's run Derrick Henry a million times and hope that it's enough. The Titans do boast the best third down defense in the league, so I don't expect Mahomes to be throwing the ball all over the field against them. I don't expect him to struggle either, but like I said earlier, I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, and the Chiefs are just going to be a little bit too much for the Titans here.
Yeah, I really like the Titans to cover this one. I think that 11-point number is huge, and I saw it's been like moving back and forth the past few days. I saw it as high as like 13 at one point. But Chiefs 30, Titans 21, Titans cover plus 11, over 46.5 hits there. Titans are a real quiet 5-2 right now, and they have a stranglehold on their division as they're 3-0 in AFC South play with 2 wins probably over their biggest competitor in the Colts. Somehow they found a way to win this past week with Malik Willis at quarterback going only 6 for 10 for 55 yards and throwing a pick. I think I saw he threw the ball only one time the entire second half, which is nuts in today's NFL. But then you look at Derrick Henry, like you were touching on, Kev, went nuclear, over 200 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. But this week, he's playing the Chiefs, not the Texans. Can he replicate that line if Ryan Tannehill is out of the lineup again? I think Tannehill should be back. It sounded like he missed last week more due to an illness than his ankle injury, but that's still up in the air. Chiefs allow 92 yards per game on the ground, which is ranked 10th best in the NFL this season. So it could be a harder matchup. It's also hard to run the ball consistently against the Chiefs if you get down early, because they can get up on you 14-0 in their first two possessions, especially at home, and then force you to throw the ball back to get back into the game. So I like the Chiefs at this one at home, but I think the Titans find a way to kind of hang around, make it competitive, and cover the spread. And like you mentioned, Kev, Andy Reid off the bye, you can never bet against that. So give me Chiefs to win this game. Now time for our best bets and upset special. Suck at these as always. I'm pretty good with the upset special, but the best bet is this for this in college. If I faded myself this year, I think I would be the richest man in the face of the earth. I'm going to go my best bet this week, Colts, Patriots, under 39.5. If you look at Bill Belichick's resume against like first, second-year quarterbacks, he's facing one this week in Sam Ehlinger. He just destroys them, dominates them. It wouldn't surprise me if this was 35-0 Patriots in this one. A few pick sixes thrown in there. I'm expecting this one to be more of like a 16-13 kind of emulate Washington versus Indianapolis last week. I really like this under, though, and I don't see either of these teams engaging in a high-level shootout. Last time I said that was Seahawks-Lions, and they scored nearly 85 points in that game. So do with this information as you want, but Colts, Patriots under 39.5 is my best bet of the week.
I have the Eagles minus 14 versus the Texans. I don't really like betting on the Birds because I think my bias can get in the way here, but I don't think this game is going to be that close. I do think next week for the Birds could be a potential letdownish spot. It seems like every week is a letdownish spot now, though they haven't lost yet, and no one on the upcoming schedule is really putting any fear into them. But I do think it could come next week against the Commanders, not here. Eagles minus 14.
All right. And then to our upset special, I'm going to go with the Falcons, plus 140 on the money line versus the Chargers. I've definitely picked them a few times this year, and they've done me well. I think they're one of the bigger surprises in the league this year. We're kind of expected to be in that range of like 1 to 3 for those top 3 picks. And it looks like they have a chance to be a playoff team right now. Chargers, I know they're coming off the bye, but still traveling West Coast all the way to East Coast, and the worst run defense in the entire NFL. They face Arthur Smith-led rushing attack, who is just a really creative mastermind in the run game, and he's got a mobile quarterback with Marcus Mariota. Tyler Algier, the rookie running back out of BYU, has carved himself out a nice role, and Cordell Patterson off the injured reserve, came off the injured reserve today, recording this on Wednesday. So I think they're going to run the ball all over the Chargers and have a good chance to win that football game. So Falcons on the money line, plus 140.
I'm taking the Jags plus 106 versus the Raiders. Travis Etienne here is the key for the Jags, as Trevor Lawrence has struggled a little bit lately. The Jags do still have some fight left in them, while the Raiders look just dead and useless at this point.
All right, well, that'll do it for Week 9 for NFL Big 5 games of the week. Any last-second comments before we head out, Kev?
Go Phils tonight.
All right, go Phils. Hopefully next time we talk World Series champs and 8-0 Eagles.